kind of want to leap forward. You mentioned briefly, about torts, right? And we had this initial conversation before we got started about PI attorneys, personal injury attorneys, maybe diversifying and maybe investing in torts. And I have a lot of questions, and I'll kind of represent the standard PI attorney here doing a lot of auto accidents. When should they be thinking about this? Because on my end, it seems like the cash flow's not as quick.
Yes.
There's a little bit more risk.
Yes.
Maybe the pie's divided up significantly more. Like, when should they start thinking about this area? Do they need to be super capitalized? All these questions are going through my head.
So I will start off by saying this, Chris. I think that every lawyer, regardless of whether you've been practicing for 1 year or 100 years, every lawyer should have a docket of mass tort cases on their books. Every lawyer should. And the reason being is because it provides for diversification. It provides for the opportunity to hit those home runs and that long-term huge value resolutions that if you don't have them in that portfolio, you're only going to be reading about them online or on television. And certainly I do understand the fact that, well, gosh, these take forever. That it's the long game with regards to mass torts. So I totally get it. And because of that, what I tell people is you need to have someone in the business that you can trust. Someone, because I see, quite frankly, a lot of dumb money going into mass torts, whereas, oh gosh, look, this case just settled for $2 billion, so let me get in there. If you're not getting it in at the right price, if you're not with the right lawyers, there's a lot that goes along with it. So you also have to have someone in the business that can kind of steer you in the right direction, who can provide you guidance, because there's a lot of dumb money that comes into the space because you're getting a piece of something that you really don't know that much about. And I can say that because I've made all the mistakes. I've put money in the wrong places. I've associated with the wrong lawyers. I've taken the wrong risks. And so one of the things that I do is I help lawyers kind of consult on, hey, here's what I'm doing, here's my portfolio, let me suggest to you what you think you should do, and then learn that knowledge and then go do it yourself. So every lawyer should absolutely diversify just a little bit into mass torts.
I love that. And one of my questions is about that diversification, even in the torts itself, right? So you've got some that have the good science, right, the AFFF, and then it's kind of like a coin flip.
Yeah.
So are you managing it kind of like a portfolio, like a stock portfolio, or like, hey, here's the science is really good. This one, maybe it's an asynchronous bet. Like, hey, maybe Tylenol goes great. Maybe it's going to hit all those factors. Like, how do you approach it? Because it seems like, the case acquisition costs, especially once they get started, I guess they'll significantly increase after the science. How do you approach like the diversification of the torts even themselves?
Okay, so I've got two answers with regards to that. The first is I've got kind of a 90-10 strategy with regards to approaching investment into mass torts. And what that basically means, let's just say, for example, okay, my budget for this year is $2 million to invest in the case acquisition process. Whether you're talking about personal injury, whether you're talking about criminal, whether you're talking about mass torts, $2 million is that budget number. Then basically what I'm suggesting is take 90% of that money and put it into your core business to make sure you continue to do what you're doing, making your money, making sure everything goes the way that it needs to. You take that 10%, the $200,000, and okay, great. Here's money I can put towards some risky ventures, the mass tort type things of that nature. That way, if the $200,000 does go to crap, you can still fall back on what you've got as related to your core business, and you're going to be reasonably okay. Now, just from a bigger perspective, I absolutely adhere to what you talked about, Chris, the stock market portfolio approach to this matter, which means I get some of this and some of this and some of this. Right now, I have about 17 different dockets of cases that I'm working on, which I know the normal person, hey man, I don't have the money to do this. I totally understand. And that's why, for example, you would get with someone like myself right now to say, hey, AFFF is a great one to get into. I think hair relaxers is a nice one to get involved in. And also right now, it's the sex abuse cases. Sex abuse cases, I've got over 5,000 sex abuse cases nationwide. You have to be involved in these cases just because they're going to resolve, and they're going to resolve for a lot of money.